You're listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network, and now it's time for the Paranormal Peep Show.
Hi, welcome to the Paranormal Peep Show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. My name is Neil Geddes-Ward, and once again, I'm joined by co-host, fellow host, whatever host he is, Andy Chaplin. Andy, how are you?
We'll go with whatever host he is. That'll do.
Yeah, jolly host. How's your tuned-in events been going?
That's been skyrocketing. So anyone that's interested in psychic events in the southeast of England, join Tuned In Events on Facebook, Tuned with the D, Tuned In Events, and see what we're up to. We're all over the place. We're getting bigger. I've kind of, I don't know if I said this last time, Neil, I've kind of changed the style of our signs and our posters. We're going a bit more Victorian. And the reason we're doing that is because we're adding ghost stories. So it started off doing one-to-one readings, and now we're doing kind of like one-to-ones with like a group demo of mediumship. But we're also now adding ghost stories on top of it. And so everything's kind of gone a bit Victorian, and the banners look amazing. I've changed the style. I'd actually handwritten like the kind of oldie worldy text for it, and as a result it's beginning to work. We're getting a lot of people coming, and just things are getting onwards and upwards, as they say.
Excellent. Well, I've been to the local Spiritualist church. I must admit, I was a bit tenuous about going tonight, but it was a full house there, which I haven't seen in quite a while. But unfortunately, the medium there is just, I'm not saying she's the regular medium. She's not the house medium as such. I'm not going to mention names. I don't want to embarrass people. But it was pretty dire. And she always gives the same message to virtually everybody. Honestly, it's my girlfriend and I, we could predict what she was going to tell us tonight. We're supposedly, well, I'm a little bit psychic, I guess, but we was having a bit of a laugh about what she was saying. Of course, she came out with everything what she said. Mm-hmm. And I was getting so bored that I was drawing like a little face on my hand with a nose and everything like that, and every time the medium spoke, I would mouth what the medium was saying. I mean, I know it's totally disrespectful.
You're one of the nightmare people.
Yeah. And the trouble is, we arrived late deliberately so that we wouldn't have to endure the whole thing. We went out of politeness. Because I said, let's support this place because I want to keep it going because, they might have some good mediums in the future. So if we keep going, even through the bad times as such, then hopefully they'll keep up the momentum as such, and we thought, well, we'll just sneak in at the back. And when we got there, there's only kind of like two seats at the front. And we thought, oh no, so we had to walk right in front. Everyone sit down right at the front. But I was getting a little bit bored with the messages coming through because everyone sounded like the other. And the final message of the night was from a horse. Would you believe?
A horse.
A horse. This lady said that a horse was marched up and down the central aisle of the Spiritualist church and had come to say hello. And then she said, has anyone lost a horse here? And no one put their hand up. And then the lady who ran the meeting said, oh, well, so-and-so who normally comes here, she's on holiday herself, but she has a horse. And this lady says, oh, well, it must be for her then. The horse has come to say hello. But I'm thinking, well, if the horse has come to say hello to her, surely, why come to say hello when the person's not there?
Wouldn't it be more like a...
Yeah. And I just thought, oh, this is the pits, bringing back someone's horse, this is... and the thing is, she never really gave out names to people. But on one occasion, she did give a name, but she never gave the opportunity for the bloke to confirm yes or no. She goes, I'm giving you the name David anyway, and moving on. And it's like, no room for kind of, well, can we clarify that in some way? Yeah. When I give a reading, I said, look, I'm getting the name XYZ, Bill, Fred, whatever it may be. can you take it? And if they can't, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I've moved on to someone else, or I've just got that completely wrong. But she gave no one a chance, and it's like what she's doing is not real mediumship. I think it's just it's not even poor. It's not even good psychic stuff. It's just every message is repeating itself, and each time you see this person, it's the same thing. You're playing like a stuck record. It's really awful, I have to say. But this is why I'm not mentioning names and faces and things like that. But never mind. But hopefully the church will get better. And I mean, they do have some good mediums there, I have to say. Some mediums are quite good. On this occasion, they weren't. But never mind. Anyway, I have been busy. I put myself in for a COVID vaccine. Yeah.
He swapped sides. He now loves Dr. Fauci, and he loves He loves.
Well, I just fancied a free pizza. No, what it was, I thought I was going to test out the system. So I booked myself in online for a COVID vaccine to see if they were still accepting people. And much to my surprise, they're still accepting people, even though, you know, there's Andrew Bridgen, the MP, who's been trying to speak in Parliament against certain things to do with certain medical implementations, and everyone was walking out in the House of Parliament and refusing to listen to him, which I thought was rather distasteful and really bad, that they're not going to give this guy the time of day. He's almost speaking to a virtually empty house. It's just that they don't want to face the music, you know. And now I have no intention of turning up for this medical intervention, but I just wanted to see if they're still accepting people, and they still are, despite the fact that there's issues going on with it. But anyway, so there we are with that. So we'll move on before we get banned off YouTube, before I speak too much. And we're going to welcome back our guest that we had, was it around Christmas, I think? We spoke to our guest before. Time does certainly fly. I know it's just before his birthday, because I sent him three prints for his birthday, which I hope arrived intact. Welcome back to Robert Hulse. Are you there, Robert?
I am indeed.
Welcome. Hello. Welcome back to us. Now, we're hoping for another guest to join us, and I think I can actually see her as well online, so I'm going to add her to the call now.
Okay.
Just been waiting for her to show up, but I can see a green light. So it's your friend from Canada. So we'll add her to the call now. If you just bear with me. How are you? Welcome.
Good. Well, I just got an inversion client in the door, but that's okay. She knows how to help herself.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as we're not interrupting things, but are you good to talk?
Yeah, we'll just pretend Jade isn't there.
Okay, fine.
I could move to a different room.
No. Whatever suits you is absolutely fine. So, welcome to the Paranormal Peep Show, Beata. How do we say your surname? Beata Van
Berkom.
Van Berkom. Okay, well, it's Andy and it's Neil.
Hello.
And of course, you know Robert. So we've only just started. Here. So we're warming up. So we've just done our introductions, and we just said hello to Robert. So now it's hello to you as well. So thank you for joining us from Canada. Now, which part of Canada are you from?
I'm in the belly button of Canada.
Right. Is that right in the middle then? Down sort of just north of the United States?
We're in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
So that is just north of North Dakota. I was born in North Dakota. It's just I live in a city called Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Right.
Yes, it's a very mystical city. We're quite high up, and we have a lot of paranormal history here. Actually, we were the province that had the most crop circles per capita in Canada when it was back in the heyday of
you have Bigfoot going on.
We do. We have some Bigfoot. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. With my understanding of Bigfoot, and Robert and I have talked about this
many times.
A little bit about what we think they are and what they're all about. Yeah.
So Robert, you have a great interest in crop circles, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And was that before the UFO thing, or did it kind of tie in with it and come along at the same time?
No. The crop circles came along for me probably mid-90s. My interest in ETs and UFOs came when I was a boy.
Right, of course, you had your experiences as a child. Yes, I remember.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my sister and I were both taken in 1959,
Right.
before the Betty and Barney Hill case. But of course, there were many other cases before theirs, but that was the one that got the most publicity, quite rightly so. But yes, and it was Dave Caton and Roy Dutton who got me interested in the crop circles. Yeah, Roy was there in the early days with Colin Andrews, Busty Taylor, and Pat Delgado. And he was one of the pioneers. And I used to go to Roy's house when he lived fairly close by here, and he would educate me about the crop circles. And he'd done a great deal of work studying the appearance of ET craft, and he had his own ideas about whether they could be predicted, whether they were actually using stars and alignments to have a flight path and a timing for appearing. And in fact, that's Roy's book, UFOs in Reality.
Wow.
Which he wrote. Roy Dutton, dear old Roy, he died 2 or 3 years ago now, but we were great friends, and he taught me a great deal. So I was involved with the crop circles for over 20 years, I guess, and I met Beata because she was the main crop circle investigator in Saskatchewan. I didn't actually meet her personally at that time, but we got in touch, and Beata very kindly sent me some photographs that she'd taken inside a crop circle in Saskatchewan, which I've still got those photographs. And so we've known each other for many years now, and since my wife died nearly 10 years ago now, we've spoken. Well, I don't know, probably 300 nights out of 365 for the last 10 years, you know.
Oh, that's cool.
So I kind of joke with Beata that we probably talk to each other more than a husband and wife do, you know.
Now, Beata, you're known on, you call yourself the tinfoil hat lady. How did that? I can't actually hear you. Is your mic muted or something? Maybe it's muted. That's it. Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about muting your mic. It's okay. So yeah, you call yourself the tinfoil hat lady. Interesting name. It's kind of like, I mean, obviously people call anybody into the alternative thing tinfoil hatters. Why did you grab the bull by the horns and call yourself tinfoil hat lady?
Well, so people would have an out, because what I was angry about was 9/11. At the point where tinfoil hat lady started to come into focus. And I had learned things from Alex Jones and David Icke and those sort of blokes, and they are kind of aggressive and serious, and David's a little funnier, but my friends weren't going to listen to them. So I thought, well, why don't I do satire? Why don't I make a character that they like a fool, you know, character that people can laugh at, but maybe listen to without having to take too seriously.
Yeah.
So I created this character called Tinfoil Hat Lady, and her name was Hilarious Schnorkelfarken. Yeah, hilarious. And so I did a one-woman show. I had written a script that was, probably about an hour long, and I gave it to my mentor, Henry Wolf, who's in heaven now. He was from the UK, and he helped me edit it down to 27 minutes of pure comedic genius, which it is. and you can find it on my YouTube channel. So I slapped it up on YouTube in 2007, not even knowing what YouTube was. I didn't understand it was your own channel. I didn't understand anything. I just knew I had to get this show out there, and I did. And so then the name just kind of stuck. And I even, for my I call it tinfoil therapies, as I have a client inverting behind me here.
I suppose it's a similar mentality to ours, Neil, isn't it? Because Paranormal Peep Show, we chose it because it's kind of like it's light-hearted, it's tongue-in-cheek, it's not taking ourselves too seriously.
Exactly. So there she was up there telling her story, and people can find it on YouTube. It's pinned at the top of my channel, youtube.com/tinfoilhatlady. They'll find the original show.
Yeah.
YouTube has cut the Rammstein music I used at the top because I created a little PowerPoint post and pre to get people in the mood for what I was going to talk about, and then I come out and do the 27-minute monologue. That is really fun to watch even now, wouldn't you say, Rob?
It's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I mean, of course, these days, conspiracy theories, as people say it, what's the difference between conspiracy theory and fact? About 6 months. Has been the norm for about the past 3 years. And going back to Alex Jones and David Icke, weren't they right about almost, not everything, but almost everything? It's just bizarre. 15-minute cities. Imagine going back to somebody in the year 2000 and saying, pretty soon they're going to say that you can only stay in a certain zone within 15 minutes and you're not allowed to travel out, and if you do, you're going to get a fine. Can I imagine saying that to kind of regular people? And yet here we have it, 15-minute cities, North Korea.
Imagine saying to me as a lab tech in 2000, and one day you're going to lose your job over a mask.
Which don't work. And we can't get banned off YouTube because this is mainstream news. There was a study done, and shielding and masks do not work.
The government actually stated that right at the very beginning, the UK government, that is, when they were first doing the little presentations. They said, our evidence suggests that talking to people around the world, these masks are not very effective. And then 2 weeks later, they make them absolutely, everyone's got to use them. And you're thinking, what's going on?
We didn't have to wear them in March. By October, everybody had to wear them. And then it went right against the laboratory safety manual, which clearly states that to be worn if you're sick, if you're caring for the sick, and they do not protect against aerosolized biological agents.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? And they were like, Beata, this is coming from way up high, so we must go against our laboratory safety manual. Way up high.
What you need to do, you need to say to them, do you know anyone that vapes? Oh yes, I know someone that vapes. Brilliant. Get them to put a mask on, take them to take a big old suck on the vape, and then breathe out. If you can smell strawberry cheesecake, you've got COVID. Congratulations. Well done.
I
remember seeing this lady actually when these masks everyone was wearing. I saw this lady wearing this mask in the street, and she looked really elderly. She was struggling along, and then I saw her sit down with her mask on a sort of bench in the street.
Yeah.
And she took her mask off and lit a fag and started smoking.
It's brilliant.
I thought, oh my God, what's going on?
It's a cult. It's like some weird Moonies cult thing going on. I mean, I'll tell you this, Neil. Right, I'm still seeing people with masks. Occasionally, it's rare. I'm still seeing people with masks. The best one was I was driving along Romford, and there was a petrol station. 11 o'clock at night, no one else there. Okay, there's a guy on his own filling up his tank with petrol, gas for our American friends out there. Filling his car up, fully masked. Right, no other cars around him, no passengers. He wouldn't have to go into the shop because it was night pay, so he'd have to pay kind of using the kiosk type thing. Nobody and fully masked, and I was just thinking, what are you doing on his own? Who's it affect?
That's safe and sorry.
Yeah, I've seen husbands and wives in their car driving past me, both wearing masks. Yeah, and you're thinking, what, you live together and you're both wearing a mask in the car? It's like, what's going on? And I think they got so used to them that it became absolute fear if they suddenly took it off. What's going to get to them? And I remember once going into a motorway services, and they wanted everyone to wear masks, but I wasn't wearing a mask. I just walked in, and I could see this guy in there waiting for someone to come out of the toilet, his wife or something. And he was just waiting like near one of the stalls in there, and he had a mask on, and he suddenly spotted me coming in without a mask, and he suddenly like froze and like backed against the wall, and his leg was trying to climb backwards up the wall against me. You know, he was so scared that I was going to give him something. You know, and yet these are the people that are supposedly, manipulated into having certain medical inclinations, so they're protected from people like me, apparently.
Yeah.
So, but he still had the fear of God put into him.
We need to give a shout out and full credit to the only, I would say, kind of mainstream, I suppose it is mainstream, the only mainstream news program that is worthy of listening to all parts of the spectrum, left, right, libertarian, tyrannical in some cases, which is GB News. GB News is absolutely fantastic, and it just keeps getting better and better. And what they do, I mean, some people say, oh, they're far right. They're not far right. Most of their presenters are black or ethnic or gay, so you can't accuse them of being far right. But they will have guests from all spectrums of all parties, and there'll be pros and there'll be cons, there'll be fors and against. So they're very, very balanced, and they just keep getting better and better. I would really ask people to listen to GB News. Switch off BBC News, switch off ITV News, switch off Channel 4 News. Those are absolutely, in my view, just completely corrupt news channels that only push the confirmed government narrative. They will not have any guests on. The reason I'm bringing this on is they had a doctor, Dr. Asim Malhotra.
Oh yeah,
who was a cardiologist who was pro-vaccines, and he's still kind of, pro the regular vaccines, the normal vaccines for polio, blah blah blah. But it took his dad sadly passing away as soon as he was jabbed by it, and then I think something like 9 months of research into actual data, not just anecdotal evidence, but actual medical data, which absolutely eviscerated, if that's the right word, the official narrative. And GB News and Neil Oliver is absolutely fantastic. They absolutely completely deconstruct the official narrative, where anyone really who believes it is an absolute fool. If anyone goes out there and they believes the official government narrative and the official mainstream doctrine on all this, they're an idiot, really. They're an idiot.
Well, how can we now believe it? Because they've had all these investigations into all these little Downing Street parties where they're tipping back the wine. And they're trying to say that they followed all the COVID rules and they were drinking self stupid, basically. And so,
this is a great one. This has come out recently. Did you know that the same Wuhan lab that was basically where this lab leak may have came from, they're now saying it probably did come out of, they were also, and this is confirmed, working on 2 vaccines for a COVID-like virus pre-COVID. So the vaccines were always, they were kind of being worked on, and they were being manipulated, and they were playing around with this COVID virus before it was actually either released or I don't know. We don't know if it was kind of deliberately released or whether it just kind of accidentally leaked out. But the whole wet market, the thing coming from a bat, to me, that's now a conspiracy theory. To me, someone ate a bat and got a virus is a conspiracy theory. So far as I'm concerned, it's a lab leak.
Well, yeah, I know they questioned Ozzy Osbourne over the bat eating.
It's difficult for me, not me.
There's also some evidence that they were asking for some help in working on COVID-19 in November 2019 in labs in Ukraine. They were advertising for positions.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Wow.
And again, that was a crazy conspiracy theory. But mainstream news, I'll have to kind of search for it. The Pentagon had some very awkward questions in why are there 64 US funded bioweapons labs in the Ukraine, and I think it was 64. I'll have to go and check on it. Oops. Oh yeah, we forgot to mention that part. Yeah. Dr. Fauci, bless his little cotton socks. In my view, Dr. Fauci should be tried for crimes against humanity, and he should be tried for, at the very least, medical negligence and manslaughter. If it was a deliberate release, now we're talking genocide. So that's my
culpable way back to the HIV days with the AZT, right? As with remdesivir with COVID, AZT to HIV. I mean, he's been involved with crime for a long time, that guy.
Wow.
Wow. Be gone.
So the tinfoil hat stuff definitely explains it to people, I think, in your way. You do acting as well, don't you? You've done.
Oh yeah. I'm a professional performer. I've been a performer since the late '80s. Well, since I was a kid. And I'm also a medical laboratory technologist, which I had lost that career. Recently, I've got employment as a medical laboratory technologist, again, part-time, but I'm also working at, the grocery store now telling my jokes to the public. So it's actually working out for me.
Wow. So you were doing voiceovers and things for a cartoon series, did I read?
I also do voiceovers. Yeah, I've been the voice of a television station here. I've done lots of radio ads and jingles. And recently I did animate 2 characters on a kids show. Yeah.
Wow.
But I want to talk about it because it doesn't come out till June, and they'll pounce on me if I say it.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll make sure that we won't talk about the characters or anything like that. We're zipped up until at least June, and then we'll try and look out for it or something.
Well, if you need some British voiceover actors, me and Neil do a few.
Yeah. We do lots of outdated prime ministers, and we're going through prime ministers too quickly. See, we just about get the voice right, and then they're fired.
That's right.
Oh, I found I found it. It wasn't actually 64. It was 46. So this is from peoplesworld.org, but you can find it on lots of other sites as well. The Pentagon said on Thursday, and this is dated June 14th, 2022. The Pentagon said on Thursday that it operated 46, not 64, but 46 biolabs in Ukraine handling dangerous pathogens after previously dismissing the charges as Russian propaganda.
It's quite a dangerous thing if you're having a war in there and you're firing missiles left, right, and centre. And you've got all these biological labs with stuff that you shouldn't be releasing to the air.
Yeah.
And you're having a war in that country. It sounds really dodgy.
From what I'm hearing, Neil, and this is kind of like speculation or allegations, who knows. As you know, we live in a reverse world where the good guys are the bad guys and the bad guys are the good guys. So the Jimmy Saviles in the 1970s was the good guy, and the guy from the Sex Pistols, Johnny Rotten, not Johnny Rotten, was he Johnny Rotten? He was the bad guy, the sweary guy. Turns out that actually Johnny Rotten was warning about Jimmy Savile back then. So now Johnny Rotten is actually the good guy and Jimmy Savile is the pedo bad guy. So how this relates to this, we're told that Trump bad, Orange man bad, and we're told that Putin bad, Russian man bad. But from what I can understand, Putin was actually trying to target the bioweapons labs in Russia because Putin allegedly got wind that, they were planning another release. They were planning another global pandemic, and they were planning another virus. Even Bill Gates, bless his little cotton socks, was saying, oh, when the next pandemic happens, what do you mean, when? Shouldn't you be saying if another pandemic? Because we haven't had a pandemic since, like a serious one since about the 1960s, the 1968 Hong Kong pandemic. Before that, probably the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. So, he's talking about when the next pandemic happens, probably in the next few years or so. What do you mean when? So this is kind of like shows this is foreplanning. This guy, this psychopath, is probably going to release something. And it's basically Putin caught onto this. From what I hear, he was going to take out the bioweapons labs. And the other reason, of course, that Putin was going in was to free the people of the Russian-speaking Ukrainians in the Donbass region. Now, I'm not particularly saying that Putin is fantastic. He's not a saint and he's not the golden boy, but neither is Zelensky. But of course, in our Western media, we're told that Zelensky is this shining golden boy of love and light, and Putin demon with the kind of devil horns. Is Putin actually going for the bioweapons because he's actually trying to save the world from being another pandemic released by the psychopaths who want to kill us all?
So in Canada, do they have that kind of attitude that Putin's the bad guy kicking about on this? Yeah.
But again, everybody is split, right? There's the people that don't put Ukrainian flags out, and there's the ones that do, right? I mean, it's just like the rest of the world. Some of us are awake, some of us are not. But I think more and more of us are waking up. We have our own problems here with our government in Canada.
Oh,
So,
Trudeau's a psychopath.
oh yeah,
Communist lunatic. It's communist lunatic.
totally. They're trying to control us all the time by holding back funding to make us do what they want. You know?
Wasn't Trudeau going to say to the truckers that were honking outside the Parliament that if they had their dogs on them, he would murder their dogs after 8 days or something like that? Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Look that one up. Look that one up.
I don't know. It was just horrible what happened there. I just went and saw this documentary movie called Unacceptable, all about, the truckers' strike. And we just were crying. People booed when Trudeau came on the screen.
Good. They need to. Please do. Oh, here we are. Canada protest. This is the Daily Express in the UK. Disgusting. Trudeau slammed as Canadian police threaten to seize and kill truckers' pets. Justin Trudeau and the capital city of Ottawa has been slammed for threatening to seize and euthanize the pets of Canadian truckers protesting against the government. Express.co.uk, February 21st, 2022. He's a psychopath.
Wow.
Just listening, please do not ever vote for Justin Trudeau, and please do everything you legally can to get him out.
Well, now we know that China had a hand in our election, so we know how it's gotten in.
Oh, right. So when's the elections come to get Trudeau out, or?
Well, he jumped the election on us, so I think we have quite a time yet, over 4 years, perhaps.
Oh no.
What a dictator.
Oh, he's simply. I really can't have. I don't have any kind of idea how Canada's going to get out of this. I can't even.
I mean, surely. I've been to Canada and I've known Canadian people. Canadian people are good people. I like Canadian people. They're usually rational. They're logical. They're open. They're warm. They're friendly. They're accepting. I've met a fair few Canadian people. Why can they not see what Justin Trudeau? How can he have that much support?
They're too nice, and I don't believe he does have that much support. I think we're skewed. And our voting system is skewed here because the East decides our elections. We have pure democracy here. We don't have like the States where they have electoral college and each state has a lot of power. We just have pure democracy. So there's so much population brainwashed in the East. By the time they vote, we already know who's going to win. Doesn't matter what we vote in the West. Really, we should just be our own country out here. And maybe America will liberate us one day and bring back our democracy. I'm dual, actually. So
it sounds like The Handmaid's Tale to me. That's getting echoes of that coming through. It's a good series for anyone that's interested. So getting back to the crop circles, with the crop circles in Canada, I mean, Robert was talking about the ones that we saw quite a lot in the 90s, and they're still appearing. But are they similar to the ones in the UK, or do they have a difference about them?
Well, when I was into this, it was the late 90s, early 2000s. And we had mostly simple circles. We started to get the key formations and larger, like the revenue formation, as time went on. And then I sort of started to understand that there was groups of hoaxers that were trying to infiltrate and obfuscate and destroy the research and things like that. Because the more bigger things that happened, the more kickback we got. So I think it was probably one of the best places to study crop circles. We have the most canvas for it out here with all the fields. And I would put out press releases. I would solicit reports. And I saw some wonderful formations, and I also saw some hoaxes. So what
would you say would be the difference between what you would say is the genuine ones versus the hoaxes? What would be the giveaways with the hoaxes?
I think something that's too complicated could be a hoax sometimes, but then there are super complicated ones like the basket formation in the UK that were obviously real. So I'd have to say that, that would be the key. But
I would just say that the genuine ones are perfect. They really are perfect. They're obviously laid with an energy and not with a mechanical stomping board. and as careful as the hoaxers are, they still make mistakes, whereas the genuine ones are perfect. It's as simple as that.
I have to tell this hilarious story because I spoke at Signs of Destiny. I was invited by Dr. Chet Snow to speak in Tempe, Arizona in 2002. And it was still the heyday. And everyone was at this conference. And I hadn't really, connected with Rob as a friend then. But he also knew a woman named Nancy Talbot, and she was speaking about the Mayan glyph formation, among other formations. And there was a room of 500 people, all high on the crop circle fantasy. And she was trying to explain, she had it on very good authority that this formation was probably human made. And the whole room just groaned. How can it be? And then I found out later it was Robert. He was the good authority because he had been making a study of these board marks and had found physical proof of, hoaxing in this formation, and just put a damper on the whole spirit of the room. I thought she was going to get, stones thrown at her.
I mean, thing is, you should, every supernatural and paranormal encounter, you should look at the logical, and you should look at what might it be that you shouldn't jump to, oh, it must be aliens. And this is me coming from a kind of like a paranormal supernatural background. I do readings, I work with spirit, but you've got to have a logical head, because if you just treat everything like it's supernatural, then you're missing out on the fact that it could be fraud, or there could be something else going on that's a natural explanation.
And of course, we have the blown nodes as well from this steaming, the superheating, the nodes extending, the nodes blowing, especially in nice or something. I saw some really good plant changes in my time.
So something I'm noticing that's really, really curious, and it's only really recently that people have been merging these worlds together. Sometimes when people kind of see UFOs, or having encounters with kind of like UFOs, they often sometimes have, especially in North America, they have Yeti or Bigfoot experiences, or vice versa. If they see a Bigfoot or have some kind of Yeti experience, then later on they might see a UFO. Have you seen that cross correlation at all?
I've read about it.
What's your views on that?
Well, my views on Sasquatch is that they're a very ancient species that were created here before us, and they have very little lifespans, and they're probably interdimensional because they remember how to live here and we don't. And they remember us as their younger brother that they wish could come back to them, and they love it when we sing, and they love it when we play drums, and you can contact them through trees.
The knocking, isn't it?
They travel through trees. So there's a whole different thing going on with Bigfoot that I think a lot of people understand. They're very, very spiritual.
Do you get crop circle formations where there's high Bigfoot sightings, would you say?
No.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
No.
Is that because the crop circles are out in the fields?
Exactly.
The Bigfoots will be in the woods, forests, and they don't want to be seen too much in the open. Yeah.
They're trees. They travel in trees. And you can connect with them. If you hold the leaves of trees, you can talk with them. So it's up to us to reach out with our hearts, because they're waiting for us. But we're in a forgetful state. But they were created by people that also had a hand in creating us. They're stewards of this planet. They can live here. Like our bodies, we would, die in the elements out here in Canada, but a Sasquatch can live in or up in the mountains. So they're made to guard the heart of this planet, and we were part of that, and they remember our creation and hope that we wake up so that this experiment doesn't have to end early or anything.
So when we talk about them being spiritual beings, I mean, most people on a general understanding would talk about Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and they say, oh, it's a big hairy 8 foot tall, roughly ape-man type creature running about, hides away from people, kidnaps a few loggers from time to time, and takes their snuff or whatever it is. And that's about it for most people. And then we got the Patterson-Gimli film from 1968, which I think was in Northern California, I believe. They were actually tracking Bigfoot for quite a few days on horses down the river, and that's maybe on the third or fourth day they spotted something, and it happened to be a Bigfoot. And that's been supposedly, my understanding is it's been confirmed as absolutely genuine. People have studied this for quite a few years now using computer technology, the way it moved and everything like that. They also said it was a female one, which was a very interesting observation, because you'd think for the kind of time that if they were going to fake it, they'd just assume that, we'll get a guy in a suit and put him in a suit. But it was a female one, which kind of makes us kind of think, oh, hang on a minute, so there's another level to these beings rather than just our physical sighting of them. And you're saying, are they super intelligent, or is it a spirituality that's intelligent? What's the bit that we're missing?
I think they can drive the starship. Think of the Wookiee on Star.
Star Wars, yeah.
Think of that.
Is that before or after the jab?
I think that's a good hint. They can drive the ships. They have the ability to use this natural world in a way that we forgot. We probably can travel in trees as well, but we've forgotten how to use our spirituality. We just live in our physical body. We forget we have these three other subtle body systems, right? And we've been dumbed down by the enemy so much. So it's really up to humanity to want to reach out and live differently and come out from under,
Who do you think the enemy is? Because I'm very well aware that there's an enemy.
There's forces in this world that want to enslave, and there's forces in this world that want life to be free. So it depends which vantage point you want to look at it from. Some people would call it the devil, the cabal, the reptilians, like whatever. If there's a force that wants to enslave you, then that would be the enemy. If there's a force that wants you to live free, then that would be God.
Yeah.
Whose side are you going to be on? And that's where we are right now. These are frequency. We're tuning ourselves to different frequencies. And the frequency of fear, like I'm going to wear my mask, I'm going to hide myself, I'm going to shut myself up, I'm going to not speak, I'm going to go along with this huge lie. It was such a big lie, they had to, muzzle us all so we wouldn't speak it. There's so much symbology going on here as well. We can learn. This is a huge, beautiful hologram we live in, and it's always speaking to us. Everything is alive. And that's another thing that the native people would always say. And they have a great relationship with the beings of, Sasquatch is what we call them, right? So our native people know these people as their older brother.
Has any Sasquatch done any harm to people? Because I've always thought they kind of warn people to stay away, like throwing sticks at trees and things, or making noises and stuff like that, or throwing rocks and things.
That's how they communicate and stuff. But I think Robert and I are aware of one case, if I can remember, of those kids that were hiking in the mountains, and one of the last things on their thing was a Sasquatch, but they were sort of mutilated. And I think we were thinking that maybe it was trying to warn them away that they were in danger of getting mutilated,
But then another kind of thing in the equation is people coming across caves, and the idea of kind of like reptilian beings and kind of like underground reptilians. So it could be that the mutilations were not really the Sasquatch. It could be the reptilians doing it, and the Sasquatch is saying stay away so you don't get mutilated by them.
Yeah, it's kind of trying to protect us. I would think more they're a guardian of humanity rather than an enemy of humanity.
It's interesting because we kind of we got this perception of them as being quite primitive, but maybe we're the primitive ones.
We're the fallen one. Yeah. We're worthy. We're worthy, and we're not per se primitive, but we're primitive because we refuse to use our tools, right?
Yeah.
So Robert, with the mutilations, that's something that you've come across quite well with David Caton in your experience. Yeah. So for those that don't know about the mutilations, I mean, some people would be aware of the Linda Moulton Howe cattle mutilation story from the Strange Harvest film. But it goes beyond that, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, Beata probably has had her own connection with that subject because she was friendly with the leading, I think, investigator in Saskatchewan, possibly Canada.
He was from Alberta, Fern Bazil, and I had at a conference here, and he gave a great presentation about the cattle mutilations that he had investigated, and I was quite stunned to see that some of these cows, it almost, not only are they exsanguinated, right, the blood is taken, but they have the same anus cord out, tongue missing, jaw exposed, eyes gone, sometimes different things removed, but all laser precision. And also that they had been dropped from a height. Sometimes they're stuck in wires, they're in a bush. So I would say, like, why would they drop it? I could see taking a cow. Well, we're just going to check the environment, see if there's toxins in your animals. Well, why drop it back down? I mean, is this really to scare us, or is this they're just so out of not being human, they don't understand how disturbing that is. Like that thing that got to me is like, why? I can understand, okay, you want to take the cow and you want to do all this, but why then drop it back down? Like
this is it. And I mean, if you were, for instance, like a part of a secret agenda and doing this very hush secretly, you could take the cow, do whatever you're doing, and then like eject it into space, or kind of like drop it at the bottom.
Put it in a furnace. Put it in a furnace, like
put it in a furnace and get rid of it. And then all we do as humans, we just go, that's strange, there's a cow gone missing. But the fact that they've actually dropped it back down, they don't give a monkeys whether we notice it or not, which is bizarre.
I was wondering about the blood. Now, when I was working in blood bank, we would inject rabbits and then bleed them to get the reagents, the antibodies that the rabbits made in order to do our testing. And so I often wondered, were they injecting the cows with something so the cows would produce an antibody or something in the blood that they then would harvest out of them?
Letting it grow, because this is where I think I recall either David Caton saying it or someone talking about the fact that certain animals they believe had marks on them, maybe ultraviolet marks or something, or came up under ultraviolet, where they were targeted maybe to sort of be visited later on, like you say.
That's right.
They're carrying this whatever inside of them.
Talking about being marked or branded with something that would show up under a black light today. We were just talking about this. Yeah.
Mark of the beast almost. Do
you know what I've heard today? Talking about things that show up. Apparently, jibbity-jabbed people have had the jab. Not only is there this weird magnetic thing, I don't know if you guys heard about this. If you get the jab, apparently you get magnetic. You could put metal on there and it kind of like sticks. But also people's skin is starting to glow under black light, under UV light, as if it's kind of like kind of like glowing neon parties where you put on face paint and everything glows in black light. Where people have been jabbed, they're beginning to get these patches of like orange and kind of like glowing stuff under UV light. They don't know what it is.
Lucifer rays.
So this is where they've been jabbed, the actual area.
It seems to be where they've been jabbed, but also this is the interesting part. It begins to spread around the body. So over time, other patches form, and I've heard that it's kind of like an orangey colour and sometimes a purpley colour.
I suppose it depends which brand you're using.
The AstraZeneca, is it the Pfizer? What do you go?
Yeah, that's right. Give me Agent Orange, please, today. So these poor animals that are getting dropped, it reminded me of sort of last year I came across a video, whether it's genuine or not, I don't know, but it seemed to show a flying saucer dropping something out.
Oh, did it? Where was that? What was that? Where can people find that?
Well, I did put it on one of our previous episodes, actually, so I can probably find it again. But I found it on YouTube. Flying saucer UFO drops mysterious thing or something,
Wow.
Drops something out of the belly. And you try and see what it is, but it just looks like something circular, but with a slight rough edge to it. So it's almost tumbling, and it seems to drop into an area of trees. Now, if I was the guy videoing that, and it was genuine, well, I would go into where that object was and take a closer look at it with my video camera. But unfortunately, the video didn't show the rest of it, So it makes me wonder, was it fake? Maybe they just wanted to kind of tantalize us with this footage or something. But
Well, I can tell you that years ago, because I was quite friendly with Linda Moulton Howe in the early 2000s, with our crop circle research, which Linda joined us occasionally for that. She came across a case where several cows were dropped through a copse of trees, and it was obvious that they'd been dropped because they'd smashed the branches off the trees, and they were lying amongst all the broken branches. So
how many of them?
I think there's probably about 5 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it was clear what had happened to them. But I don't know that they do this to upset us or frighten us. I think they just don't have our emotions.
Yeah.
They don't recognize that, and that's the same when people get taken. and they take sperm and eggs and do various things to us. They're quite emotionless about it, as a Beata knows, because I mean we've both been taken, through the years.
The other day about this, where I had a regression about one of my incidents, and what they basically said was like, well, we can do this. We can take your genetic material. You're not hurt. What's your problem? This is what we do. We've been doing this for a long time. Get over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's your property.
Well, that's their attitude. But perhaps, Beata, you might tell us about one or two of the things that have happened to you, in your childhood, perhaps, with regard to the ETs. Because you've had some cracking experiences.
Yeah, down to last night outside in the yard. But anyways, but I don't know. Do you guys? Is it okay? Do you want me to start my little tale of ET?
Please do. Please do.
Go for it.
So the first thing that I remember happening that was ET related, and Robert has helped me sort this out over our friendship the past 10 years, to be fair, because I had my own perceptions of what this was, and he got me to understand really it was more than I was thinking it was. So the first thing I remember is being in bed as a kid and my door to my room just flying open really quickly, and this big noise and this big light being there, like, whoa, and just like light. And then my next sensation is that I'm paralyzed, and my wiener dog at the time was sleeping between my knees. I probably was around under 6 years old, around 6 years old, 5 years old. And my dog sleeping between my knees started to growl because of this door coming open and the light. And she was just like that. And I had a thought, which I always thought was my own thought, but Robert has got me to understand is the thought they give you. And my thought was, well, it's a good thing I'm paralyzed, because if I could move and I would wiggle my leg, my dog is so upset she would bite me. And so I relaxed and was okay with being paralyzed. And then all I remember after that was just being done. And then I got out of bed and I went to my parents' room and I was like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? That, this happened? And my parents were just like, oh, you heard cats fighting, go back to bed. That was the first thing I remember. The second thing I believe that happened was, my parents started getting a divorce around that time. And so we were staying out at the farm at my grandma's house, my dad's mother in North Dakota. And we would stay there. Now, I had two experiences in that house, and I don't know if this was the right order, but I'll just tell you the first one first. And my sister was sleeping in the bed with me, so she remembers me yelling about this when it was happening. So we were sleeping off the living room in a bed that was a double bed. We went to bed. Then all of a sudden, I woke up on my hands and knees at the end of the bed, facing out into the living room. And I could see this, what I thought was a half man, half wolf running in a circle on all fours. And a big light coming in the picture window. The thought that came to me with the light, so it was so bright, was that, oh, it's the yard light. So again, that's them trying to calm me down. It's a yard light. But I was yelling, Grandma, Grandma, there's a half man, half wolf running around in the front room. Now, my little sister heard me yelling this and decided she wanted no part of it. She opened her eyes for a minute. She could see light coming from the window behind me. So there was light over there. There was light over there. And she just remembers a man's face that looked like a sheep. And her favorite stuffed toy was a sheep. So that believed her. By the time my grandma came, everything was done. Now, this is the incident I got regressed about. In the regression, I remember seeing through the wall of the ship, coming back, going through the window. It was like I could, was all, nighttime, but it was like night vision, coming through the window. And I think what happened, and it happened when I had my C-section too, I woke up too soon. So I was in the yard and I saw this mouse and I scared him and he started running in a circle. So then I realized, oh, okay, the little gray that brought me back, I was waking up too soon because I was awake coming through the window, and he was freaking out because he was running in a circle and they were trying to get me back and get out before I was like yelling, "Grandma, grandma." So then I was sleeping in the opposite bedroom one night. I can't even remember if it was day or night because it was so weird. And it was just a single bed. And I remember getting this feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm being able to see through the wall. And I could see like the studs in the wall, and it became light. And then I could see like a silhouette of a little person, what I called a monkey person. He had a big head and like skinny little arms. And I got this feeling they were looking for me. So the voice was like, be still. So be okay with the paralysis and they won't see you. And that was how it, how they put me back to sleep. Or
this all sounds very mind manipulation. Very, very manipulative.
Yeah.
Can I just say, Beata, that you lived near or at Minot, didn't you?
Yeah.
For a time. And of course, Minot is the place where the nuclear missiles were shut down in their silos.
In 1966, yes. And that was in the book that Stephen Greer put out. And I asked my mother what happened in the summer of 66 at the base. And she said, oh, a man on drugs turned all the missiles off. So they all out. No, it was a big craft that hovered over the base and turned off all the nuclear missiles.
Okay.
So, yeah, this grandma's house, though, was in a small town called Powers Lake that's just outside of the city of Minot. Of course, they call Minot the Magic City, right?
Yeah.
So, then those were my childhood memories.
But can I just say, Beata, didn't your grandma say that she'd seen?
Yes, this grandma had also said that she had seen UFOs over her barn. She told my mother that. And I have a feeling that something had happened to my dad growing up in that house because he ended up having some problems with alcohol and other things that I think sometimes happens with people that don't understand.
It certainly does, yes.
Yeah. So then time went on, and really not a lot happened to me until I got a bit older. And the next thing I can remember is my son seeing a yellow ball over the house 2:00 in the afternoon, and we saw this yellow sphere, stopped. We saw it change. We got binoculars and saw it. We had a white sphere follow us down the highway that my son saw. My mother had her own UFO problems. That craft would follow her. She saw a diamond-shaped craft one night driving on the highway. She saw a craft after she stopped to get some gas and pointed it out to the guy, and he couldn't see it. So then she realized she couldn't talk about this anymore. I can see them when I sit in my yard at night. I've seen black triangles. I've seen crescent-shaped craft. Last night I saw another crescent-shaped craft go over.
Okay.
Unexpectedly last night, thinking about this, interview I was going to be doing today. And I thought, oh, this is funny, of course.
Yeah.
And another thing that I'll just jump into right now, which I think Robert mentioned the last time you interviewed him, was that I had an experience in my bedroom in 2017 before I went to Jordan where a shadow person came in my room.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. The top hat man. Is that right?
Yeah, and I didn't know what that was all about. But I know that since 2013, there had been a prophecy given to me about myself that I'd be taken to different places on the planet to spin magnetics, and that I was a magnetic spinner. And I was like, who is this Reiki lady and all this? And anyway, all the predictions came true, and I ended up going to all these sacred sites on the planet. And I realized that Jordan was going to be my last job in March 17. And just before that, I was in my room. I was listening to a podcast. So I was, half awake, half asleep. And then all of a sudden I realized that something had walked in my room. And he was so tall. And he was flat. And I thought, okay, I'm going to take a really good look at this thing. What is it? How did it even get in here? I was annoyed. Like my immediate reaction was like, ew, like, how did you even get in here? And he was looking. He was going back and forth like this, looking. And I noticed he had pointy shoulders. He had a little tail flick of a coat. He had a narrow waist. His hands didn't have fingers. They were just pokes. And he had these long, skinny legs. And as soon as I saw that he was wearing like what I conceive as a top hat, I said, top hat? Really, buddy? And then I was so down on him, snotty towards him. And then he saw me. As soon as I had that thought, he saw me. And then his legs stretched out. His torso didn't come towards me, but his legs stretched out. He put his knee on my bed. And I didn't realize that I was paralyzed at that moment, but he took his 2 little tentacles and he wrapped them around my wrists and he pulled my hands up like that. And I was like, holy doodle, I'm not having this. This is too much. And I, from my dantian in my gut, I pulled this energy up, up, and it was a no, and it came out and it went, no. And I just pulled my arms back like that and it snapped like silly putty would snap. And then I thought, is that all you got? He was gone. And I was so annoyed, but I literally had to use every ounce of will that I had because I wasn't having this, and I pulled it back. And then I realized, wow, he wanted me to be scared. And I wasn't scared. So it was like a jinn experience or something, and I didn't know about this top hat man. So I talked to my friend in Texas and he was like, he was wearing a top hat? And I was like, yeah. He goes, top hat man, he's a shadow person, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know anything about this. So that was quite annoying. And then I said to my son, hey, this happened. And he was like, shh, don't talk about it. We don't talk about TOPHATMAN, okay? We don't say it. So I guess that's part of the thing. If you talk about it, then you can spread it to other people or something. I don't know. But I realized later that they do want you to be afraid. And I think they were just testing me to see if I was going to be able to channel the energy in Jordan I needed, that I didn't have any fear. So maybe it was actually helping me.
Right. So do you think his intentions were good then?
No.
No, it wasn't good. No. Okay.
I don't think he was good, but like maybe, right? Like, 'cause what's good and what's bad? Like,
yeah,
maybe he was just sent by someone to see if I'd be scared or not, that I'd be able to hold this frequency I needed to when I got to Jordan. But I don't know why it happened. I never heard of him before, and I didn't know anything about shadow people per se, but he was flat and matte, and he had no face. He was very tall.
Was it difficult to get to sleep after that?
A little bit, but then I realized, like, if I'm scared, he'll come back.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So and then as, the weeks went on, it would be like, oh, I'm going to bed. Ooh, is that thing going to come? No, that's what they want. And then I realized this is what they do, and they want to come back. And I'm sure there's women and men, even maybe this is an incubus or a succubus or something. And they come back and they take advantage of the energy that you create with your emotion.
Yeah, they use the fear to their advantage in some ways. They overpower you with the fear factor, I suppose.
And I've heard of people, calling to Jesus when this happens, or they feel like something's on their chest or whatever. But I just used my righteous indignation, my personal righteous indignation, like that he had no authority or consent. He could not be here. I was just indignant with him. And I think correct response, because that was my natural response, which was, you're not allowed to be on with me, darling.
So you wouldn't associate that with any of the alien UFO grey things at all? As something separate from that, maybe?
How do we know?
Yeah.
He, interdimensional entity, he was 2-dimensional and he was flat.
That's interesting. It's flat like a piece of card or something.
I've heard of this before.
Have you, Andy?
Yeah.
His shoulder and his hands were just points. And like I say, his torso didn't come to me. He stretched out his long leg till his knee was on the bed. And then he stretched out his hands to wrap them around my wrists. And I was unconsciously paralyzed. I mean, I didn't even think of trying to get away.
It's interesting that he came in the room and appeared to be scanning around looking for you.
Yeah.
As if he had just arrived and thinking he hadn't got his bearings and he's trying to work out. And then he suddenly, because you thought of something or said something.
Said, top hat? Really, buddy? I engaged him. So this is another clue on how to deal with these things. They feed off of us. I could have hidden from him. But I guess I had to have this altercation with him for some reason, because I was up for it, because I'm a little bit like that, you know. If I see some kind of injustice, I mean, I just go berserk, right? Like, I mean, I'm kind of like a warrior spirit. So in my natural essence, I'm a fighter. So I was just like, what are you doing in my room, boy? Whoa. You know.
Yeah.
So,
Have you ever had any weird experiences like that, Robert, of any mysterious ghosts or anything? I know you said you saw your wife, didn't you? But
Oh yeah,
it was a positive experience.
that was
tell the Sasquatch visitation, the healing.
oh yeah. Yeah. I was not well for a while, and I spoke to some friends, and one of them, who was particularly gifted, said they would send a
Silverback.
well, I think it was supposed to be a gorilla, but a power animal to help me and look after me, and but I didn't know that. I didn't know that that's what had been sent. I had this dream, which didn't seem to be a dream at all, where I was stood outside the house, and there was a tree outside the house with a big hole in the side of the trunk, and it was a bit like a one of those a big comfortable swing garden chair things that you would sit in.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it was the hole in the side of the tree, and coming out of that hole was all this black hair hanging down, and I really didn't know what it was, but it turned out to be a Sasquatch and a female one, because I then in this dream found myself in bed, and this female Sasquatch, I was lay on my left side, and this female Sasquatch was behind me and put her arm right across me, and I could see it was all like black and hairy and furry, and put her hand on my heart, and I could feel this love and healing coming to me, and it was wonderful. It was not frightening at all, and I found out later that that this was the kind of power animal that had been sent to me by my friends. So you know, I do feel very comfortable about Sasquatch, and I can tell you that I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago, I was talking to some friends who live maybe about 10 miles away from here, and the lady has had plenty of UFO experiences and taken photographs of weird light phenomena in this park area where she takes her dog for a walk in the evening. And one evening, a couple of months ago, she was walking there, and all of a sudden, and she was with a neighbor was walking along with her. All of a sudden, there was these loud thumps on the ground, as if somebody had dropped huge boulders onto the ground around them, and the ground actually shook. And the neighbor ran off in one direction, and she kind of walked away a bit quickly. But the next thing was that in one of the tall trees, like a big poplar tree, all of a sudden, all the top of the tree started to shake violently, and her neighbor was on the other side of the tree at this time, and he could see that there was like a huge person in the top of the tree shaking the tree, and absolutely a dead ringer for a Sasquatch.
Wow.
And that is 10 miles away from where I live here, at a place called Bramhall. And So they travel wherever they want to travel, as Beata was saying earlier on.
True. And he's talking about this black hair. And I was reading a lot of channeling that had come through. And I can't quite remember the name of the book where I got all this information, but there was a description of a female Sasquatch with long black hair that is a healer. And so when he told me long black hair coming out of a tree, and he wasn't even going to tell me about the monkey hand, you know. And then I realized, Robert, you've had a visitation from the long black hair.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It really was. I'd just go back to the shadow people for a second. I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, I drove to Rhyl in North Wales and visited Prestatyn and Talaka Warren, which was the place where my sister and I were taken back in 1959 from just beyond the sand dunes, just on the beach there, where we were missing for 4 hours. And I was kind of reminiscing, you know, and I don't know why I'd gone. I just felt I needed to go there and relive these events in my mind. And just as I was about to walk away from the sand dunes, I bumped into this couple who were about, I don't know, early 60s, I guess. And it turned out they lived just inland a little way, and at a special place where there's this waterfall. And they bought an old house there. And we got talking, and I said, I didn't tell them that my sister and I had been taken by aliens. You know, I thought, I don't want to scare these people. But what I did say was that my sister and I had seen a UFO. Well, of course, the pair of them then said, oh, crikey, we've seen loads of them.
Wow.
And we think they're coming up out of the sea because they come out across the sand dunes and over our house. And we've seen the jet fighters from Valley on Anglesey coming along, chasing after them. But regarding the shadow people, the man said that he'd seen shadow people in his house on 3 occasions.
Crikey.
Yeah. So I think it's a fairly common event, this shadow people thing, you know?
And I have to say that there's another thing I have to tell you guys that I just remembered when Robert was talking about missing time and stuff. When I was in grade 12, I was so in love with this boy from grade 4, and I dated him in grade 9. And then in grade 12, we had a chance to go have lunch together out of high school in a park. And we got our food, and we got sitting down. We both looked up, and there was a gray disc on the horizon. We were both looking at this disc, and then it zipped off. And he looked at me, and he said, "Did you see that?" And I didn't really want to talk about anything. I just wanted to kiss him. And so I said, "No, I didn't see that." And we went on with our lunch, and I was, let him think I didn't see it, and he was crazy. But that summer, I went to my camp up north that I'd gone to in the wilderness for many years. And we were doing a 24-hour be alone on your own island in a giant lake culmination to our adventure leadership experience. So they dropped me off on my own island with all my gear to spend the night on the island. And they went around the corner. I said goodbye. They went with their canoe. And I was so happy to be left alone. I sat down. I left my gear there. I looked into the water just to relax. And for some reason, it was suggested to me to just repeat my name to myself over and over. So I was looking through the water at these big granite boulders. It was up in the Canadian Shield. And then all of a sudden, my name became something I didn't recognize. And then it became just a sound. And there was just this tone. And then it was like, again. And I looked up, and the canoe was coming around the corner. And I said, what are you guys doing back here? And they said, "What do you mean? We dropped you off yesterday. We're here to pick you up." And I was so mad because I didn't get my 24 hours. And just shut up, because this is weird, right? And then she looked, and my stuff was exactly where she chucked it down. She goes, "Didn't you make camp?" And I went, "Oh." I guess I didn't need to. And she went, oh, you nut. And she says, get in the canoe. I sat there for 24 hours on a rock.
Wow.
I didn't remember it getting dark.
Wow.
Weird.
Wow.
He called me by my soul tone. So I think the good guys took me then and did something. But I was gone for 24 hours.
That's amazing, because like in this country, they wouldn't sign kids off onto islands these days, would they? Drop you off, they'd have to go through all sorts of health and safety tick lists and everything, they just
Well,
don't.
we'd already done that,
Yeah.
But yeah,
They forgot to tick UFO check or something,
there was kids from all over the world. There was a guy from Switzerland. There was people from, people came to take this program. It's a great program. And I became a Saskatchewan voyageur over it and everything. But again, I'm sitting on a block of granite, right? I mean, it's full of crystals. And I really think it was a magical experience. I wrote a blog called The 5 Hindrances because for many years I thought I had a samadhi experience. I saw a yoga teacher talking and she said, you have these meditation experiences where you experience it like a moment and it's over. And that's how I experienced this, like it was a moment. So I always told myself that I had a Buddhist meditation experience. And then when I started talking to Robert, he was like, oh my dear.
Was you regressed to find out what exactly had happened on that night?
I get nothing from that. Nothing. The only thing I got from that regression, that one regression where she knew about everything, was that they could do what they want. But Pat, our other friend, she suggested that they called me by my soul tone, by the way they got my name. And they got me to say my name over and over until it turned into this sound. That means that it was the good guys. And they me and it was fine.
I'm sure that both Beata and I are looked after, shall we say, by our friends. Well, I know I've had experiences with them, so I know we're looked after.
Let's just say it wasn't sloppy. Like the bad guys, the sloppiness. Grandma, there's an half man. Oh, the light. Oh, the dog's going to bite me. Like, it's not sloppy with the good guys.
The good guys are professional in there.
Oh, yeah.
In their appointments, yeah. Do they leave marks with you? Like Robert's had marks. Have you got any marks on your body?
Yeah, I got scoop marks. I was just talking with Pat today about this branding things flashing under black light. I've always had a spot, and I don't think I've even told Robert this, on my thigh that's sort of like it looks like a Harry Potter light, but rounded edges on it.
Yeah.
And when I would suntan as a kid, it would never tan. And back in the late 70s, my best friend's older brother had all these black light posters, and we would go into his room and turn on the black light. And I had shorts on one day, and I noticed that thing on my leg reacted with the black light. So that's weird. I could be branded somehow. That's what Pat said today, because she talked about her scratches, glowing as well, even after they'd been healed.
Now, getting back to the Sasquatch thing, I know that there's a lady that I spoke to a number of years ago. She was doing a presentation for a conference, and she was researching Sasquatch's Bigfoot sightings in the UK, which surprised a lot of people at the time, thinking that we're not a big enough country to hide these things. But you've talked about these perhaps potential sightings of Sasquatches appearing in the UK, and I remember a story from I think it's called the Gateshead Grey. I don't know if you're aware of that story.
Oh yes.
Well, yeah.
The
I think he's passed on now, but he was a young boy in the 1940s, I believe, that was abducted in Gateshead near Newcastle. And he believed that he saw Sasquatches around the time of the abduction, as well as a humanoid and greys as well, literally in the backyard, which is interesting. I think his name was Robert, forget his surname now, but we spoke about him in one of our previous shows. And he said, I know it sounds crazy, but I saw what you'd call a Bigfoot, and it was around this UFO abduction as well. So maybe we are having these, when people say they've seen them in the UK, they are associated with flying saucers rather than walking wild in the woods or something.
They are associated with ETs, definitely. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Richard Hall did an excellent a video on that, didn't he?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, the Gateshead Grey. Which it's interesting because the guy at the time was talking about what he described as sounds like the typical kind of Nordic type of people, because he was saying, "Oh, I know this sounds silly, but they had hair as long as you, Richard," meaning Richard D. Hall, down to your shoulders,
Yeah.
and that wasn't a particular fashion of men in the 1940s of that time.
No.
When everyone's being signed up to fight in the war, they're all having crew cuts and everything, and here he was, a young lad, talking about people with long hair and that, and it just was totally unheard of to see a Bigfoot and people with long hair, like hippies or something, So yeah, he seemed to be talking generally from the heart. I felt that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The guy was totally honest, I believed. Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact is, his uncle was also involved in the story because he whacked the Grey over the head with a shovel or something. So he chased after him up the street, and unfortunately, by the time Richard D. Hall got to interview his uncle had kind of had dementia or something like that, and he couldn't remember much at all. So he wasn't really able to answer any questions about that past sort of like 50, 60, 70 years ago or whenever it was.
Yeah.
And, but it was a good job that Richard D. Hall did manage at least to interview Robert Taylor. I forget the guy's name now that was involved in the story. And as I say, I think he's now passed on. But yeah, he was a witness to these creatures, and possibly they took one away, possibly because they hid it down in the basement. This Grey that was whacked over the head and presumably killed. They hid his body in the basement.
I thought they did it. Was it in the crypt of the church?
That's right. Yeah, kept it there for a few days until someone, the police, the authorities, could come along and do what they had to do with it.
On a different subject, can I just and talking about how we are protected or helped? Beata herself has had the experience of being warned about when she was driving towards an intersection in the car. Perhaps you might tell us about that.
I had two of those. We're coming towards an intersection and the light is green, but for some reason it's telling me be wary, and then I'll go a bit slow and car comes through, just blasting through. Or I was in an intersection trying to turn left. We're on the opposite side of the road with you guys, and it was winter, and all of a sudden the opposite side just got wide and said, "Why would you have to turn left? You can go straight." And then it was sort of like a map in my brain of where I wanted to go. So I just started to go straight instead of stopping to turn, and a car came skidding through, and it would have T-boned me if I wouldn't have decided not to turn.
Who do you think is giving that information?
Well,
we're protected.
What about the three soldiers, Beata?
Yeah, and I should tell the three soldiers. I was driving home. I was directing a show. I was driving an actor home, and he didn't have his seatbelt on, I remember. Now, when I had my C-section, I almost died. This is where I met the three sepia people. Yep. And when I almost bled out, I went to sit, which I think is in the Serapeum in Egypt, but I didn't know where it was before until I went to Egypt. But it was like a subway station as well. And Girl from Ipanema was playing, and I was sitting with these three hooded beings, and we were just sitting there, So I knew these sepia beings and that they were connected with my being alive. And then I didn't bleed out, and I made it through the surgery, and everything was good. So then a couple of months later, or maybe a year or two later, I'm driving the actor home, and we're coming up to an intersection. I noticed he doesn't have his seatbelt on. I said, "Oh, you should put your seatbelt on." And then we both looked up, and on the, what is it called? The meridian in the middle of the two lanes, there was three sepia tone World War I soldiers, and they were all saluting, and they were going, "Attention, attention, attention." And he saw them too. And it was like, pay attention. So we came up, the light had turned yellow, one car had stopped. I was going to complete my left-hand turn when all of a sudden another car came bolting past him and clipped the front of my car. So if I wouldn't have been paying attention, my passenger would have been T-boned.
Wow.
So people come and help when needed.
They certainly do.
Yeah, that's interesting. A friend of mine, some years ago now, it's about 11, 12 years ago, something like that. I was driving back from the south coast, and my friend was in the car with me, and she was chatting to me, and I was going to drop her back off at her house, and she was just chatting away. And then suddenly she looked at me to say something. She went, "Oh my God!" And I went, "What?" And she goes, "I've just seen a person with their arms around you, hugging you." And I'm driving, and according to her description, she said she saw this glowing figure. She felt it was male. She couldn't, she couldn't see it clearly, but she felt it was male. It was almost as if they're in the back seat of the car, leaning forward to the front of the car where I'm driving and putting their arms around me. But she said she couldn't see a head. Maybe the head was on the other side of, out of the view. I don't know. But she clearly saw this figure hugging me. And she just thought that's what stopped her in her tracks. She went, "Oh my God, now I felt nothing." If she had said nothing, I would have been totally unaware of this. I saw nothing around me. I'd never felt any energy or any presence or nothing. And she wondered why she saw it. And when I dropped her off and said cheerio, I kept thinking, "Ooh, what does that mean? Does that mean there's my number's up now, that my guide's there ready to take me or something in the car, But nothing ever happened. Nothing bad happened. I had no accidents, nothing. But she just saw this presence in the back of the car, leaning forward and hugging me as I'm driving. Presumably hugging me, some sort of protective guide, or, that's the way we're interpreting it. I don't know, but protective by hugging me in some way. I don't know what it was about.
It's not a used car, is it? No, just kidding.
I'm always driving used cars, so I imagine I have to go around with all these protective ghosts. This car comes with 70,000 miles plus one ghost.
Great.
Well, I'm afraid we'll have to come to the end of the Paranormal Peep show, because it's going to be a short one tonight, because I have an early start in the morning. So,
Okay.
I would love to go on, but I do have to get to bed and join with my protective guide in my sleep.
Well, thanks very much for having Robert and I.
Well, it's absolutely been great having you both. Having Robert back on, it's always a pleasure having Robert, and it's nice to meet Beata as well. So, Beata, as the tinfoil hat lady, if people want to find out more about your YouTube channel, how can they find out about you?
They can go to tinfoilhatlady.com.
Okay.
Or they can go to youtube.com/tinfoilhatlady.
Cool. Okay. Are you writing any books or anything like that, or publishing anything?
Some writing. If at tinfoilhatlady.com has most of my writing. You can go back to 2014. I have pictures from all my trips. I have written things about what we've talked about today. The book, my 24-hour missing, is called The 5 Hindrances.
Okay. Great.
And all my videos are on YouTube, and it was just a pleasure to talk with you guys today. If anybody has any questions, they can always write to me at tinfoilhatlady@gmail.com.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. And Robert, you have your Macclesfield UFO Society website, don't you? Do you want to give us that again?
Well, that's all it is. It's just Macclesfield UFO Society.
.co.uk?
If you just put Macclesfield UFO Society in Google, you'll find it.
Okay. All right. Okay. And do you get lots of people contacting you through that still?
Not really. But to be honest with you, I haven't done a great deal with it lately. But I can say that I have made some really good, long-lasting friends.
You really have.
Through creating that website. So it has been worth it.
It served its purpose in that sense.
Absolutely, yes. Indeed.
Cool. Okay. And where are you going back to Norway at all in this year as well?
I may do later on this year, but I don't have a particular calling to go at the moment. I don't really make many plans. I just have a feeling that I've got to do something, and I go and do it.
And then you go. Yeah.
Yes, so anything can happen,
Oh, good. Watch this space, as they say.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Robert, for joining us as well. Andy, any last words before we go?
Yeah, just any Canadians, please don't vote for Justin Trudeau and get him out as soon as possible. Really, that's the only thing I can say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a fascinating interview. And if anyone out there has experienced similar things, especially because we don't really cover this much, Neil, do we? Especially the Bigfoot side of things, and the kind of the wolf man, the dog man thing. I tell you what, Another podcast that I listen to is called The Confessionals. I've actually been on The Confessionals. I've done an interview, yet to be aired, I think. I hope you will air it. But I listen to The Confessionals. It's a really good podcast series. And there's a lot of dog man sightings and experiences that are cropping up. This is something I was not really into or not really aware of. It was kind of like in the periphery. But I tell you what, Dogman is popping up quite a lot along with Bigfoot.
This is the time where should really call back from the spirit world Barbara Woodhouse to aid us with these Dogman sites. I'm sure she could give us a few tips.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Barbara Woodhouse she was the famous dog trainer of the 1970s and early 80s. That was obviously on our BBC shows. I forget what the show was called that she did, the Barbara Woodhouse Way or something like that, wasn't it? The Woodhouse Way,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, please come back, Barbara, and help us with the dog men.
Can I just say it's been an absolute pleasure being with you guys again.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's a great show.
You're the best, absolutely.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much. Well, it's always enjoyable chatting to you both. Well, take care, both of you, and thank you very much for our audience listening. We will catch you again in the summer, in June, I think, will be our next show. Thank you very much indeed for listening to us on the Paranormal Peep Show on the Paranormal UK Radio. We'll catch you next time. Good night.
See you later.
You're listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network, voted #1 for paranormal podcasts in the UK.